Hello and welcome to the program. The King of Thailand is presiding over Buddha's funeral rituals for his late father, King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who died a year ago after 7 decades on the throne. The funeral urn was blessed by monks at the Grand Palace in Bangkok ahead of a series of elaborate processions. Andrew Plant has this report.
A funeral procession on a scale rarely seen before. A chance for tens of thousands of Thai people to say a final farewell to the only monarch that most have ever lived under. The body of the former king, kept since his death in October last year in the throne hall of the royal palace. After ruling for 70 years, this is the beginning of a final journey, transported towards a spectacular golden crematorium representing heaven, taking more than a year to build. Here, his body will be cremated. This procession will last much of the day. His body will be carried atop a huge wooden chariot, pulled by 222 soldiers, and led by his son, the new king, and members of the royal family, circling the golden crematorium 3 times. The king's death, aged 88 in October last year, sparked a national outpouring of grief and a year of mourning. He reigned for so long he became a symbol of his country, cultured and modern, the subject of lavish public affection. He ascended the throne in 1946 and reigned for 70 years. Over the last year, 12 million Thais have travelled to Bangkok to pay their respects. 250,000 are expected to watch this elaborate procession before the cremation takes place at 10 o'clock on Thursday night. Andrew Plant, BBC News.
Well, let's go live to Bangkok and to our correspondent Jonathan Head, who's there for all the ceremony. Jonathan, while we talk to you, we'll play the live pictures of what's happening at present. What can we expect today from Bangkok?
This is the main day in these 5 days that take place, because this is the day in which the king's body is actually prepared for cremation. What we're seeing at the moment is this very slow, or very carefully choreographed procession by this extraordinary chariot. It's a 14-ton construction. Hardly looks like a chariot because of all the incredible carving and gilding on it. It was actually made at the end of the 18th century. It was only brought out for these occasions. It's been pulled, as you say, by these 222 soldiers very, very slowly to the place where the cremation will take place, to this pavilion that they've built, this staggeringly beautiful gilded pavilion they built over the last several months. And there it will be transferred to another carriage. It will circle round and be carried up to the place where it will be cremated much, much later. So it's a very drawn-out ceremony. The people who are with me here, this street has had people lined up since yesterday. Some have managed to get in, others have just sat themselves down with umbrellas against the heat. They won't see anything of the procession. We're not that far from it, but you can't see it from here, but they're content just to be close to it. And I think in a way you're seeing 2 different occasions today. You're seeing the formal occasions, very tightly scripted, that adhere to Buddhist and Hindu cosmology, very important to emphasize the legitimacy, the exalted status of the monarchy, and important indeed for the successor. And then you have all these people who've come in, many of them come from very long distances away, just to share the moment, to share for them a farewell to a king with whom they felt a genuine personal connection.
And this procession which we're watching now, you couldn't get more traditional, but King Bhumibol, he came to define Thailand's modernization, really, didn't he?
He did, although in some ways he was a very conservative man. I mean, the trajectory of his reign was fascinating because he's an accidental king. He was only 18. Neither he nor his brother had expected to succeed. His brother did succeed. They were both educated overseas, lived their entire young lives in Europe. And then his brother was killed tragically, and he took over at a very young age when the monarchy was very weak. And he guided it with a great deal of backing from the military, from allies like the United States, up to this central position. So while he himself was a very modern man, he was very informal personally. People who met him say he had a very dry wit, didn't stand on ceremony. He allowed this incredibly important hierarchical ritual to be built up as the centerpiece of this showcase monarchy, which people really are in awe of. They often describe the feelings of the monarch as a mixture of love and fear. There is fear because there are very tight rules that protect the monarchy from any kind of criticism or scrutiny. It's a very wealthy institution as well, remember. It's by far the wealthiest institution in a country that has some very big businesses. It owns vast amounts of land and it has potentially huge amounts of power. But King Bhumibol himself personified a sort of gentle form of exercising that power. People believed that he was a moderate man himself, that he wanted to do good for the country. He was certainly very devoted to projects like agricultural development and water conservation, the environment. But, you know, of course, having been there so long, because he defined the monarchy, no one's quite sure what shape the monarchy will take now under his son, King Vajiralongkorn, who's a very different personality, one who, quite frankly, we can't talk about given the laws in this country.
Jonathan, for the moment, many thanks as we leave those live pictures of the procession there in Bangkok.